We begin this morning with correspondent Elaine Quijano and a story made for Memorial Day.
We are blessed.
When Kisha Patterson last spoke to her husband Esau, it was an ordinary conversation under extraordinary circumstances.
We talked that morning, and it was like any other day. He was like, "Hey, I'll call you back." I was like, "Okay," not thinking too much of it. Kind of took it for granted.
In April of 2004, Army Staff Sergeant Esau Patterson was serving in Iraq. They'd met years earlier in church at Fort Benning in Georgia. They got married, had 2 children, and were planning a family reunion for when he returned. But then came a knock at the door.
There's 2 uniformed service members standing there, and they looked at me, and I could see tears in their eyes, and that's when I knew.
A car bomb had killed her husband. He was 25 years old.
I would never get to say goodbye. I would never get to touch him. I would never get to do anything else.
What did it mean to you to have service members there with you?
It meant that what he died for was okay, that he was truly protecting and serving this country.
Those soldiers were carrying out a solemn duty that had not always been performed. During the Civil War, the military had no formal casualty notification system. Occasionally, families would receive a letter. By World War I and through the Vietnam War, the military was sending telegrams until an Army wife named Julia Moore, known as Julie, stepped in.
She completely changed the culture of the military.
Greg and Dave Moore are her sons.
In 1965, where during the Battle of the Ia Drang, death notices were delivered to spouses by telegrams in taxicabs. Cold, cruel, dispassionate. She was outraged.
I have 2 battalions on this valley.
Julie Moore's husband, Hal, was a highly regarded lieutenant colonel then, serving in Vietnam, when, as she described in a letter, a taxi driver pulled up to her house.
When he rang the bell, I decided not to answer. That way, everything would be all right. I finally said to myself, "Come on, Julie, you have to face up to what's to come, so go answer the door."
Turned out he needed directions.
And so at that moment, she knew what it felt to get that telegram, and she never wanted to have anybody else get that telegram and not have somebody physically with them.
So Moore made a deal with the local Western Union office. They would call her whenever a telegram came.
A telegram. A cab.
The 2002 movie We Were Soldiers portrayed how Moore would rush to comfort the widows. Even as she cared for her 5 young children, Moore helped other Army wives on the home front, as she recounted in an interview.
I think people forget that these men have families, and these families have problems, and the wives are left alone to deal with them as best they can. And these women were really up to the task. They really were.
Together, the Army wives successfully lobbied the base commander.
What they really wanted was the Army make a fundamental change, which they did, in that the Army should take responsibility for delivering these telegrams to the wives and personally care for the spouse during that time of cathartic change.
Service members now notify families in person and offer additional support.
In that moment, right before you knock on the door, what goes through your mind?
I just said a prayer, like, how can I be of service to this family? I don't know what they're going through, but give me strength to, face whatever it is once I ring the doorbell.
When Army Sergeant First Class Kendrick Ray delivered a casualty notification in 2021, it was a sacred mission. Now he helps families in the days after.
I believe now is my purpose. I can let people know, like, hey, you're not alone. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Julie Moore died in 2004. Her husband died 13 years later. In 2023, the Pentagon renamed Fort Benning Fort Moore to honor them both. It marked the first time an American military base had been named for a civilian.
It's not a legacy she asked for. It's a legacy she built herself towards. And a hero rises to a moment and achieves great things.
This year, the Army post was again named Fort Benning, but just down the road at the National Infantry Museum, her name endures.
When you think about what she did, what comes to your mind?
She's phenomenal. I can't imagine having received a telegram with that information on it. So I just thank her. There are husbands that endure the same pain. There are mothers and fathers. There are children that get these knocks. So she has truly made a difference for all of us.